Anthem National.
This weekend, the nation celebrates 200 years of the Star-Spangled Banner. But tonight, we have the story of a woman who started the celebration a bit early, hitting the road with the intent of performing the national anthem in every corner of this country.
Performing our national anthem in all 50 states.
From Madison Square Garden to a street corner in Idaho.
One song, one girl, 50 different states.
Janine Stange has sung this song so many times.
Janine Stange is back because she has just completed that mission.
The only song for 90 seconds, no matter who you voted for, no matter what team you want to win, we are one nation. We have one song, and this is our song.
And the home of the brave.
You are an awesome American. Stand up. Good morning. Can we get that slide to the first slide? We're going to do something that is not the first slide, interestingly enough. But remain calm, everyone. It's contagious. We're going to do something called the Navy SEAL breathing technique. You're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then slowly let it out for 4 seconds. I promise no one's ever passed out in any of my audiences, okay? So here we go. In 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. 4, 3, 2, 1. And now slowly let it out. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let out a big woo! How many people thought of Ric Flair when he did that? All right, sit down. I grew up on Long Island. My parents owned a bagel shop. My dad made the best bagels that you've ever had, and my mom ran the store. She was essentially my boss, or as I always like to call her, my own personal drill sergeant, because she had a lesson and a system for everything and was relentless. I'm going to give you 5 lessons that I learned growing up in that bagel shop, and we'll see how they helped me maintain balance and maybe how they could help all of us, right? The first lesson had to do with work ethic. If my mom saw anybody slacking or goofing off, they would inevitably hear, "Hey, you got time to lean? Then you got time to clean." And she had a stack of index cards. She had one for every chore in the store. Lesson number 2 was about character. For some reason, everybody went to my mom for advice, whether they were fellow store owners, customers, employees, deciding on college and vocation, things like that. And one thing that she would always say towards the end of their talk was lesson number 2. She'd say, establish your standards before you get into any kind of situation where you may compromise. Because if you compromise your values, it may seem okay for a little while, but you'll ultimately lose. Lesson number 3 was about fear. And she would simply say, never let them see you sweat. She might have got that from a deodorant commercial. Regardless, my mom did not mince words. Once she said to me, and this is a direct quote, she said, "Janine, you have the kind of nose that people can see right up. So you have to make sure there is never anything in it." And from that, I derived lesson number 4, which is check your blind spots and your nose. Now, this is a picture of my mom. This is my 9th birthday, and that is what I call her resting tough face. Now, as tough as she looks in that picture, she had a soft spot, and that was for our men and women in uniform and their families. I don't care how busy she was. If she saw there was a parent or a grandparent of a child who was deployed, she would stop whatever she was doing and ask them how they were. And if somebody came in the store in uniform, forget about it. She made them feel like $1 million. And she'd always say to us, lesson number 5, just talk is cheap. You could say you care all day long. Don't just say you care. Show you care. Now, at this point, I usually make all our veterans stand, but you've done that last night, and then you had to sit down this morning. So I just want to say from my heart, thank you all very much for your service. And if you all want to clap, go for it. Just move this stuff. I just feel like I'm going to make this go all over. Now, when people hear, see, I'm still working in the bagel shop, obviously. When people hear that I grew up working in my parents' bagel shop, I don't really get very varied responses. I usually get like, oh my gosh, that must have been a dream come true, endless bagels. Well, I perpetually smelled like and everything. And I hated it. And I let my mom know how I felt, because I'll have you all know here today that I was better than bagels. In fact, I was destined to be a singer. And not just any singer, one with shelves of Grammys, dozens of world tours, and my own line of perfume. But there was just one little thing that stood between me and my future of fame and fortune. And that was the fact that I could not sing in public. I was the shyest kid you had ever met. My performing debut, unlike everybody else that's got TikTok and whatnot, came when I was a freshman in high school, ironically singing the national anthem. And I wish I had a better story to tell all of you here today, but when I took that microphone and began to sing, I was trembling so badly, so I clenched onto the microphone so tightly. When I finished, I couldn't open my hand. It was stuck. Now, they probably thought I didn't want to let go of the microphone, but really it was nerves. And how did I sound? People avoided eye contact with me for about 5 weeks, so feel free to draw your own conclusion. As a result, I was mortified, right? Petrified to get back out in front of people until I was thankfully introduced to a new perspective. I was a senior now, and we had one of those high school assemblies, and we had a guest speaker. His name was Mr. Valentine. And he said something that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. He said, within you is the ability to do exploits, something uncommon with your life. And you don't have these gifts and talents for yourself. He said you have them because the world needs them. I'd been so consumed with my talent, or lack thereof, right? Then he said, I want you to go home. He challenged us. He said, I want you to go home and write down those things that you will do, those uncommon things, and what you will do with the platform as a result of the success that gives you to help others. So I did. And that really Jedi mind tricked me into facing my fears. Now, was I instantaneously cured of that paralyzing stage fright? No. But I became determined, perhaps a better word would be obsessed, with having my own episode on MTV Cribs. Every once in a while, my mom would see me getting a little bit off balance. You see, I started to develop these behaviors. I was working super hard. If I got invited to like a wedding or a baby shower from people that I graduated with, you know, I wouldn't go because I was embarrassed of the fact that I hadn't gotten to where I needed to be. So my mom would try to temper me. She wasn't trying to squash my passion. She'd say, you know, Janine, your talent isn't just for fame and fortune, you know. Of course I knew that. And I'd say, Ma, I know that. But in the process of facing these fears came the development of a phrase that I would say so many times, and it would lead to so many problems. I'd say, Ma, don't worry about it, because when I make it big, then I'll give back. That sounds nice, right? Sounds noble. But if you were able to put me on mute and just watch my actions, you would see that I was saying, when I make it big, then I'll give back, but my actions were screaming, make it big or bust. A couple years would go by, I was persistent, so I had yet another opportunity to record yet another album. This time it was out in Los Angeles, so I took off clear across the country, Long Island to Los Angeles. It was going to take 3 months, and here's how it was going to go. I was going to write the songs, get a deal, and go on tour. Bada bing, bada boom. And I'm going to just assume that you guys are not going to be surprised that 3 months turned into 5 years. I went from that girl isolated on Long Island to lost in Los Angeles. Now, interestingly enough, I was no longer clenching onto that microphone so tightly that my hand was stuck. I'd worked through that, but now I was clenching onto other things. Things that led me frustrated, confused, and exhausted. Couldn't let go. As a result, so my hand was no longer stuck, my life was stuck. And that is what I looked like, that brown dog. Anybody ever feel that way? Know somebody, maybe? It's not fun. It's funny after. So what do I attribute that position to? For me, I think it had a lot to do with my when-then statement. Remember? What did I just say? When I make it, come on guys. Thank you. Then I'll give back. So what's a when-then statement? It's basically an all-access pass to a comfort zone, procrastination party. Call it whatever you want. These places, these comfort zones, are very easy to slide into. We know this. They're very difficult to realize you are in and try to get out. It is exponentially harder. So why do we get stuck? Because even if we attempt to go towards the exits of our comfort zone, we are immediately faced with two things, two very personal things: our fears and our doubts. Not rocket science, but if they were people, they look like those two guys, right? In order to get past them, our fears and our doubts, we have to take a risk. We might have to break a habit to get out of these comfort zones. We might have to edit a goal. We might have to have a tough conversation with somebody, and maybe that somebody's ourself. Nobody wants to do that. So, of course, we end up running from the brink of potentially life-changing change. We check the life that we were made to live at the door. And we come up with these seemingly innocuous when-then statements of our own. Now, here's where all of you come in. In that pile of fun stuff that you have sitting in front of you, there is a card that has a nice quote. We'll get to that later. But I want you to flip it over, and when you see the when and the then on it, I want you to say yes when you see it. Okay. Now grab a pen, or ladies, if you can't find a pen, you got lip liner, eyeliner, whatever it is. And I'm going to go through 4 examples of when-then statements and their accompanying procrastination profiles. Now, we all have many different when-then statements, but we're just going to focus on one, the one that you think of first. I'm going to go through the examples. You're going to understand what this is, and then write down the variation that fits for you, okay? First one, the hard worker. Many people, I'm sure, have this type of ethic, right? You're a hard worker. But if you're saying this while you're burning the midnight oil, when life isn't so busy, then I will spend time with my family. How many people have said that before? Right? One person. Very honest. There we go. Thank you. Here's another one, the helper. Now, all you in the cooperative world, of course, right? Probably some of the reasons why you came in, because you wanted to help. But if you're saying something like, when everybody else is happy, then I'll take care of myself. Just a show of hands again, all of you honest Abes here. How many times in your life has everyone, and I mean everyone, on your Twitter feed, your Facebook, your life, your office, been happy all at once? I actually believe all of you now that you're being honest. Okay. How many people have said something like that? Anybody have anything like that similar? Go ahead and write that one down. Here's another one, the hermit. When I feel like it, then I'll learn the new tech. When I feel like it, I'll have that tough conversation, whatever it is, waiting on a feeling. Half the time we're like, when I feel like it, I'll start getting up early. And instead, you're scrolling through Instagram in the morning, you've ordered about 20 things on Amazon Prime, and you never got up out of bed early. Because you were waiting for that feeling, maybe that inspirational Instagram post. Whatever it was, never came, never gonna come. Here's another one. Nobody's writing, by the way. Some of you probably have, forgot that part already, but if you have something that's similar, because we are gonna use it, and the lights are on, I could see all of you. Next one is the hypercritic. How many cat lovers do we have? Right? You all know this is a grumpy cat, so he passed away, rest in peace. When others respect my ideas, then I will contribute. Maybe it even was something in this organization. You had this great idea. You pitched it to everybody, and nobody gave it the attention that you thought it deserved, so that was it. On every Zoom call, you kept your video option off because you needed to hide the grumpy cat scowl on your face. Anybody relate? Okay. So these are examples of when-then statements. Here is something called the streetlight effect. I have it on good authority that this specific streetlight that we're going to talk about was powered by one of your cooperatives here. It's about a guy. He was looking underneath a streetlight in the middle of the night, and a cop comes up to him and says, "What are you looking for?" "My keys." Well, clearly, they're not there. So the cop says, "Well, did you drop them here?" "No, I dropped them a few blocks down. But the light is so much better here." Now, some of you are really gifted at this. Not only are you you're there looking under a light, but you've got other people looking with you, right? Your leaders. Or you've got other people looking and applauding you for all of your hard work, right? If that happens to be anybody, do you know that you will ever move past that street light, get the keys and move on? No. But it's comfortable. So how many things in our life are we waiting to just magically appear for us underneath that streetlight rather than taking the time to just go a few layers deeper? Because I believe we were made to move mountains. Does anybody here believe that? One. Anybody believe we were made to move mountains? Okay, thank you. With these when-then statements, well, they keep us going around in circles, saying things. Maybe this is going to help jog your thoughts here for what your when is. When I have enough money. Anybody say that? When I have enough time. Here's one. Don't hold your breath anymore when things get back to normal. That ship has sailed. Okay? But here we are saying those things. Going around in circles. If you want me to make it sound nicer, taking the scenic route. Now listen, I have very in-depth experience in taking the scenic route. There was me in LA throwing everything up against the wall like spaghetti, hoping something would stick. One thing was working. I was getting asked to sing the national anthem a lot, and I loved it. I got to interact with our military and our veterans, hearing stories about their service, many times see what they sacrificed as a result. Bonus, whenever I called home to tell my mom about this stuff, we didn't get in an argument. She was happy I was using my voice for something like that. Momentum was starting to build in that direction, and it was at that same time that I would become acquainted with the truth of another statement. That is that life can change, can you all snap? In an instant. For me, that instant came in the form of a phone call. It was early April 2011. It would have me back on Long Island the very next day, and I would be there for months because it turned out that my mom had breast cancer. From that point, I would be with her for every pill, every puke, every procedure. Now, there's an interesting phenomenon that occurs during these instantaneous life changes. That is the fact that all of these seemingly insurmountable things, the business meetings that you can't cancel, the relationships that we're in with somebody or something that's just sucking the life out of us and everybody around us, but when the time is right, I will deal with that. Or maybe it's just the Netflix series that we just can't stop binge watching. What happens to all of those things when these instantaneous life changes happen? Poof, they become trivial, sidelined. We see them for what they are. One phone call for me, all it took. I had been in my own world, couldn't see beyond it. And now, just had been in a whole different world, one where time was no longer a luxury. Now, some of us, we could go around the room and talk about our different paradigm shifts that we've all had. I know that you all have had them. If you can't think of one, let me just say this. All of us went through one collectively. It was early March 2020. We stopped everything that we were doing to frantically search for toilet paper. Now, pay attention to the people that are laughing the loudest. They have still stock of that toilet paper. During that time, my mom was kind of coming to grips with the things that she was procrastinating on in her life, right? That'll make you think. I remember it was after a particularly tough day of chemo. We were sitting in the living room on her green leather couch watching the Food Network. Never made sense to me because she couldn't keep anything down. But she loved watching that show, Chopped. I think she had a crush on Bobby Flay. Don't tell my dad. During a commercial break, she turned to me and she said, whenever we went to nice restaurants, I always wanted to order the lobster. But I'd always say, listen to this, when there's a special occasion, then I'll order the lobster. What's your special occasion that you are waiting for, and what is the lobster that you won't let yourself have? Maybe it's permission. Maybe it's to feel smart enough. Maybe it's to hope that everybody stops criticizing you, or whatever that is. Then you'll do something. She said, had I known this was going to happen, I would have ordered the lobster. Many of us have these when-then statements. We hang on to them for weeks, months, years, our lives. 3 days before she passed, we were in that same living room. This time, she was no longer sitting on that green leather couch. She was lying in a hospice bed, barely able to move or speak. And I know many of you have been with people during the last moments of others' lives. I knew my mom was exhausted, and I think she was hanging on for everybody else. So I did for my mom what I never thought I would have to do for her at 59 years old. But I wanted her to know that it was okay to let go. So I went up to her bed, and I took her hand, and I said, Mommy, we're going to be okay. And no matter what, you won. I wasn't expecting a response. But with what seemed to be every ounce of strength that she had left in that now 70-pound body, she lifted her index finger, like she always did whenever she was about to dole out some life lesson. She said, no, we won. The last 3 words that she ever said to me, never forget me. And when she said that, I remember thinking, Ma, how could I ever forget you? Listen, I paint a pretty picture. We did fight like cats and dogs, like most mother and daughter do, right? But at the end of the day, she was my best friend. Looking back, knowing my mom, she knew I could never forget her. But what I believe she meant was never forget the lessons that I lived to teach you. Now, time out. Any of you guys have kids? Would you forget? Any of you guys have kids? Do they ever make you feel like you are talking to a brick wall? If this is the only thing you get from this whole talk, keep talking. I promise you, no matter what it seems like, they are listening. After that all happened, a couple of weeks later, I went back to Los Angeles and rolled into my apartment courtyard. It was New Year's Eve. How do I know that? Because all of my noisy neighbors who always had parties were also still having parties. However, they were counting down the new year. And I remember getting to the elevator, and as I punched the number for my floor, I had like a flash of myself like going down the hallway and banging down one of their doors and being like, "Are you kidding me? Do you know where I've been the last 9 months? My mom just died. This is no Happy New Year," right? But of course, you know, cooler heads prevailed, and it was in that moment that I realized something. The world doesn't stop spinning just because you had a personal tragedy. The sooner we can realize that, the more capacity, I believe, that we can have for others, and the less that we will look for compassion from places that we may never get it. It's kind of sketchy. You know, you post something on Facebook and you hope everybody says they're sorry or they're thinking about you or happy birthday, whatever it is. And sure, a lot of people do, but do they, really affect you? It's debatable, right? So instead you start to realize that you came equipped on this earth with all that you need within you. You just need to find it and take the time to do that. A couple weeks after that, those of you who have ever been caretakers for somebody, you know that after it's all over, you're still on this adrenaline, and then you start to tumble down the hill, and then boom, right, you crash. Well, I crashed. It was a Saturday morning. I remember I woke up. I cannot tell you if it was for 1 hour or 10 hours, but I sat up in my bed, and I remember staring at the wall in front of me. Now, I was not seeing the wall. What I was seeing was everything in my life that I took for granted that my mom would just be with me for, and my family. I was seeing stuff, milestones, celebrations, hard decisions that I was realizing, having a reality check, like, Janine, she's not, yes, I know she's with me, but she wasn't physically here with me anymore. And that was tough. That hurts. But I believe there's something important in that. It's the value of actually taking that time to process what's going on and to see things for what they are. There's many people that are walking around with the weight of the world on their shoulders, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're not giving themselves time to actually say, okay, what is really going on? I want to assess this. Instead, we pull the past into our present. We could never be truly present because of that, and we're compromising our futures. We just can't let go of certain things. And we have a whole bunch of, when-then statements or if-then statements at that point. Well, if my mom hadn't died, then this happened, right? Or if my mom, whatever, didn't get sick, then I wouldn't be so mad at everybody else. Whatever it is, we end up telling these sad stories for the rest of our lives. It just becomes a never-ending cycle. But I believe it's a choice. It comes for different times at all of us, but in that bed, that was the day that I had the choice to stay down, to stay disappointed, distracted, depressed, distraught, or I had a choice to take all of that experience, to take that, what felt like a big gaping hole, and transform it into capacity for compassion for others, and to be able to see people in a similar situation and say, well, what could I do, right? So I chose to rise. How many people here today, you all look pretty well put together, but there could be something in your life that has you disappointed, that has you distracted, that has you feeling defeated. And you have that choice today to rise. It's a choice, but after you make that choice, you actually have to take some action. How do you do that? How do you choose to rise? Flip your card back over where you wrote, and everybody read this quote with me. Squire Bill Widener, everybody. Do what you, with what you've, where you. Now, when you actually decide to do what you can, you realize that you could do way more than what you thought you could. When you actually decide to do what you can with what you've got, you realize that you have exceedingly, abundantly above what you could have asked, thought, or imagined. And where you are, it's in the present. It is far beyond your fears and your doubts. Now, when I decided to do what I could with what I had where I was, I started to think of the anthem, how it made me feel when I sang that song. I'm not going to lie, also how my mom was always proud of me when I did. Then I started to think. I was no longer thinking, by the way, of Grammys, world tours, make it big. None of that mattered in the grand scheme of things. But I started to think of, well, I sang that song in a few states at that point. I started to think if anybody ever sang it in every state. So I did what we all do when we want to do some major research. I was able to confirm it had never been done before. And that became my marathon. My mission was simple. It was use my voice to honor our nation's heroes. The crazy thing that happened during that entire 2-year journey was every lesson that my mom drilled into my head, whether I wanted to hear it or not, came back front and center like she was coaching me all along the way. So if they were good enough for me that I can say that I didn't have to hitchhike through all the 50 states, let's just review them and see how they might be able to help us make some minor adjustments in our own life. First one, if you compromise your values, you will ultimately lose 8%. You know what that represents? The amount of people who set goals that actually reach them. Now, there's many reasons why people abandon their goals, but I think one of them has to do with the fact that there are people that are setting goals that have nothing to do with their values. You know, when we're kids, you see like some big towering adult and they come up to you and they be like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you say something like, you know, astronaut, nurse, I don't know, whatever, bank robber, whatever it is. You say these different things. Interestingly enough, we ask people what they want to do instead of who they want to be. The who is the through line. Because as many of you even know, in this industry that you're in, you're finding yourselves experiencing a lot of change, a lot of disruption, a lot of wait a second, this is what I came here to do, and this is something different. I feel off balance. Here's how you make sure you keep this in mind, keep yourself in check. Decide who you are, no matter where you are or what you're doing. That's the through line. That's what helps you stay balanced. Now, next one. Never let them see you sweat. Notice my mom did not say never sweat, because we all know at this point fear and doubt never go away. Like Eric talked about the beast last night. I was here. That doesn't go away. What matters is taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other. There's a place to sweat, and that's here. You guys could talk amongst yourselves, your peers, right? But here's something to remember. When you've got that member that isn't the nicest or most pleasant to deal with, or your board is challenging you on things, or stuff that's going on at home in your own relationships, and you want to explode, here's something to remember. You guys remember that Navy SEAL breathing technique? You took the 4 breaths in, 4 hold, and 4 out. That's helping yourself remain calm. I have a friend, he's a friend, but he's a former Navy SEAL commander. His name is Rourke Denver, and something he always says is, calm is contagious. How do we know that's true? Because crazy is also contagious, right? The reverse. So how do you remain calm? You practice. Something I learned just to kind of coming out of the pandemic, there was a lot of research on this and everybody was doing it, and I said, let me try it, taking a cold shower. You're deliberately putting yourself in a situation where you want to hyperventilate and freak out, but you start to train yourself to stay calm. And when things happen in your life, you kind of can tap into the fact, well, every morning I put myself in a situation where I am freezing cold, and I hate it, but I focus on my breath and I stay calm. There's just one way to do it. There's a lot of other ways to do it. Probably some of them is just call your cousin or something like that. Try not to get upset. Okay, here's the next one. If you got time to lean, you got time to clean. That's just systems and structure, and I'm not going to go into that because that's why you all are here at this conference. But if any of you want to take a picture of that and put it in your office or your kitchen, right, encourage people that hang out, coffee clutch, they could also clean it up. Here's the next one. Check your blind spots and your nose. Many of us have great messages. We're great leaders, but there is a sideshow that's stealing our message. We don't want to know that. So when things aren't going right, rather than ask somebody who's going to tell it to us like it is, we call our grandmas. Right? They're never going to criticize us. They're never going to tell us, well, some will. My grandma would, okay? But the point is that rather than ask for true feedback, we just keep going, I don't know what everybody else's problem is, right? It's not me, it's the rest of the herd that's gone mad. I would encourage you to find, if you haven't, an accountability partner to give you those 360s that can actually literally tell you if you've got something in your nose. And if you find yourself in that position where you are that person that is actually delivering those messages, make sure you're doing it in a way that's not going to like make that person feel completely destroyed, right? You got to deliver it in a certain way. Now, back to our when-then statements. Each one of you studiously wrote down your when-then, right? Yes. Flip that card over so that you can see the when-then statement. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Pretend. Just this, make pretend you're in high school or something like that. And I'm just about to, here I am waving this magic wand that doesn't even, I don't even have one, but here I am waving a magic wand, and the when, that big roadblock, that big when that you're waiting for something to happen, or maybe the thing that you're regretting that didn't happen, is now been satisfied. You have all the money you need, you have the budget that you were waiting for, you've got the right people and the board, things like that, and now that that is taken care of, the only thing that you have to focus on is the then, the thing that you've been putting off, the lobster. For 15 seconds, I've got a counter so I could watch this. I want you to think about one thing that you can do today that will be a step towards that then. For example, if you said, I'll spend more time with my family when I have enough time, then I want you to think of one thing that you could do that will be spending time with your family today. Now listen, okay, we got technology, so even though you're not with them today, you can text them, you can make a group text, you can send them a picture of what you're eating later on, whatever it is. But that's the thing that you're going to write down. Does it make sense? Baby steps? What about Bob? Another movie? Okay, 15 seconds, guys. Go. And write it down, too. "15 seconds goes by fast. So here's the thing. Keep writing if you feel like it as I'm talking. But as you are even starting to approach the exits of those comfort zones and moving past your fears and doubts to get to the then, you'll realize that there's a whole new world out there for you. For me, that experience was quite literal. It was basically Forrest Gump running all over the country. And if any of you would like to see that journey, meet the Americans that I met and see the America that I saw. By the way, my Ohio stop was Cincinnati Reds. I don't know if you guys are fans of the Reds, but that's where okay, here we go. You never know. Talk about a rival team and you're out. You can watch the documentary. It's on PureFlix, Apple TV, Prime TV. It's called National Anthem Girl. Really obvious name there. And if you do watch it, the producers always say, can you ask people to review it? So listen, don't tell anybody I said this, but if you watch the movie and you liked it, review it. don't waste your time writing a 4-star or whatever review, okay? Nobody's got time for that. But anyhow, that whole journey hammered down the importance of my mom's 5th lesson, which was don't just say you care, show you care. Because I had been singing that I cared throughout the country. And I started to say, well, what could I do to show that I care? So I did something very simple. I didn't wait until I had tons of money and give money all over the place. I did what I could with what I had where I was. Printed out these blank thank you notes, and I asked the announcers after I'd sing, whether it was for the Brooklyn Nets or NASCAR, NMS, HMS, whatever the heck it was, I asked the announcer to say, can you tell everybody to come to my table? And I would have people write out cards to our deployed military. And interestingly enough, I ended up collecting thousands and thousands of these cards, and I loved it. And I was in a way giving back, right? Helping other people give back too. Huh, interesting. I hadn't made it big, but I was giving back. And this, all my life, I'd been waiting. Interesting. I think some of us are so consumed with the order of things. You know, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. Some of us just need to check the horse. It might be dead. Give you a little time, you'll get it. Right? Okay. Now, after I finish that journey, just do me a favor, you could talk to me about this later, but this is Janine's team. This is something that came out of that whole 50-state journey. People would tell me about veterans who were having milestone birthdays, and because I had a lot of people following me on social media, connections with the news, I just started to tell people, sign up for my mailing list, and I'll tell you about veterans that are celebrating big birthdays, and you could send them a card. All I ask people to do is what they can with what they got where they are. We're on mission 99. We have sent birthday cards to over 100 and something veterans for their birthdays, and here they are, all very happy with their cards. And it's not about me waiting to get there. It's about me saying, I'm just going to do this, and then a bunch of other people decide to do it, and there's power in numbers. Now, on the back of your card, you could also text, but if you text USA to 33777, you can also get those missions. You could get your office to get involved, your board to get whatever you want to do, your family. It's great. Now, from that I learned, and here's my leadership perspective here, is that fear is not that scary. And comfort zones are not that comfortable, nor are they worth the time, the care, the attention that we like to give them. Now, this is something, you could take a picture of this if you want. These are just some steps to be made of metal, metal being to be resilient. I'm not talking today like, oh, maintain your balance and never fall. You're gonna fall if you're doing anything worthwhile in life, right? But these are the ways to make sure that you're resilient. Be clear on your mission. Those are your values. Stop thinking about what and think about who, right? Make a move. Don't wait for permission anymore. Don't wait for somebody to, like, you know, come from the sky and tell you this is what you should do. You know in your heart. Remember your motive. That's when this whole conference is over and all the fun and games stop and you're back doing stuff at the, you know, crack of dawn, whatever it is, and you're by yourself. Remember why. Habitually maintain, you're here to do that. And the last one is to take a moment. To be grateful for where you are, for the people that, all pun intended, lit the way for you, right? Also take a moment to think about some of the things you regret. Some of us run from our regrets. Sometimes it's really important to think about that, so we learn from our mistakes, right? Now, in closing, my when-then statement was, when I make it big, then I'll give back. I encouraged each one of you to write down your own when-then statement as well. Now, did I make it big? Whenever I go to a new city, I usually find a Target, and I go to the perfume aisle and just check to see if there's a bottle with my name on it. Hasn't happened yet. But did I finally realize that I didn't have to make it big to start giving back? Mountains will move when your paradigm shifts. Now, I'm not talking about some, you know, trying to get some big personal tragedy in your life to have a paradigm shift. I'm saying to you today that we all have within ourselves the ability to shift our paradigm, to take a few steps back, to look at the big picture, remember our why, even though a lot of our whats are changing, and not wait around oblivious, waiting for something ambiguous to happen. It's not a good look. Why? Everybody put your hand right on your heart. Here's why. Because within you is the ability to do exploits, something uncommon with your life. And you don't have these gifts and these talents for yourself. You have them because the world needs them. Your world. The people that you drove in with, the people in your life, they need them. And you can't give that from a comfort zone, waiting for something to happen. Right? Now, some of you might be like, well, you heard that in high school. Well, you're all a good-looking group. You don't really look like you've been out of high school more than like 5 years. But here I go, just letting you all know. If you are thinking that, like, oh, this is nice, I came prepared with one more lesson from my mom, Patty. What she would say if she could come here and wrap this whole thing up, it'd be lesson number 6. It doesn't matter if you start small. What matters is that you start when, guys. So we're going to start today. Now, you already did start because you wrote down one of the steps that you could do towards your then. But we're going to do something called the mountain toss. This is a very Instagrammable moment for me, okay? Because all of you are going to stand up, and we're going to permanently separate our when from our then. And you're going to see how you can do this with all of your when-then statements. In fact, you're going to start to have, the reticulation when you start to hear about something, and then you start to, oh, wow, I hear it more. Today, tomorrow, you're going to hear some people say a when-then. Call them out on it. Call yourself out on it. Realize that it is just you trying to polish up your fears and your doubts to make them presentable. I got news for you. My grandpa used to always say this, and let's see if you guys have ever heard it, see if it traveled out here. He said, there's one thing that you can't polish. Any of you guys know what that is? A turd. Okay? And that is what our fears and doubts are. Now, stand up. We're going to do this one last thing. I need to get one of my cards. Here it is. So, you're going to just fold your when from your then, just like this. So now you've got a kind of a crease in there to make it easier. And I'm going to get my camera, because like I said, this is very Instagrammable. Anybody here in the witness protection program that can't be seen? You got a duck. You? All right, great. There's always one. Okay, so you're going to count down from 3 to 1 out loud, and then when we get to 1, don't do it yet. You're going to go like this and throw it in the air, and it's going to look like, whew, it snowed, okay? You guys got to do a practice round of counting? Are we good? Okay, here we go. 3. I said count out loud. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Woo! Give yourselves a round of applause. You just moved your first mountain. Now, the last thing I'll say to all of you as you sit down is always remember to order the lobster. Thank you guys so much. You can follow me on social media.